farm grow, but helping it grow within your community. That's the whole goal of the Farmers Marketing Association. Is we want to help community farms feed the communities, and we don't never want to take you out of the markets, but what we want to do is help you expand into retail, giving more accessibility to your community and even into double up food bucks programs. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the panelists. Just one quick note. We're going to have everyone speak, all three of the farmers, for about 10 minutes. And then at the end of that, we will open it up to Q&A and take any questions that you might have. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alma, and please take it away.
Thank you, Mike. I was wondering if I could share my screen, if it's possible. And if it's possible, I'm going to try it.
Yeah, go for it. You should have that share screen function at the bottom.
Can you see something or not?
Let's see. It just says you started sharing your screen, but we don't see anything just yet.
Okay, let me try again. And if that doesn't work, then I'll just share the pictures later. Okay, it doesn't seem to be working, of course. But let me talk to you about the Anthony Youth Farm, and then I will share
too, if you want, Alma.
I'm sorry?
You can send it in the chat if you want the PowerPoint, and I can upload and share if you need it.
Oh, okay. Well, that might be a little bit more complicated. So let me just talk to you about the farm right now. So the Anthony Youth Farm is a community organization. It developed out of the need of creating economic opportunities for youth in our community. We live in a very small community that's in between Las Cruces and El Paso, Texas, and there's very few employment opportunities. There's very few recreational and even educational after-school opportunities for youth. So the farm was born out of the need to provide, meaningful ways for youth to get engaged, and to also to be able to provide or to create a sustainable supply of food for our communities, which, the demographics of our community, it's very divided. There's people who have money, who own land, there's farmers, there's a very strong, robust agricultural sector, while at the same time there's most of their community, it's low income farm working people with no access to land and no access to really meaningful employment opportunities or opportunities to develop. So the farm is trying to address all those different areas, and we have been working and anchored in three main columns of our work. One is the ecological dimension, which is focusing on really restoring the soil and growing in an ecological manner through companion planting, through crop rotations, and everything that's needed to sustain life, at the soil level. Our other dimension, it's the community level, which is ensuring that youth have access to employment opportunities and that our community is very well fed. So during the pandemic, the youth, we remain open, we never close, and the youth were growing, they have been growing about 85 to 130 pounds, 30 bags of, they've been providing about 85 to 130 bags of veggies to low-income communities in our region. And then there's the economic dimension, and I'll elaborate later when it's my turn again, but the economic dimension is creating a farm model that is actually economically viable. We cannot only depend on grants, because then what are we teaching youth? We need to be able to have a farm that is able to sustain itself, so that we can create models for community members, low-income community members, to engage in agriculture and to know that they're going to be able to make it, to live with dignity and to provide for their families. So I believe there's going to be another opportunity for me to elaborate a little bit more about our model and what we've been doing in terms of just engaging in wholesale work and the role that plays in our model. But for now, I just want to tell you that engaging in wholesale has been a very important piece of making sure that we're able to do what we need to do in terms of farming sustainably and farming for our community. Do I have more time, or how does this work?
You've got a few more minutes, Alma. If you'd like to share about how we were able to work with you over the last couple of years and get some packaging done with you, and how we've done that with you, that would be great.
Definitely. So as part of our economic, and so all these different dimensions of farming, the ecological, the community, and the economic dimensions of our farming are very closely interrelated. So when we plant a diversified model, we farm in a small 3-acre farm. And when we plant in a diversified model, what that allows is that it not only creates resilience at the farm level, but it also creates resilience in the community. So for instance, if we were to plant corn and we had a bad year for corn, the farmer will be very vulnerable to not having any income or any food for their families. So when we grow like different varieties of vegetables, we grow about 30, the farmer is able to, if you have a bad year for squash, you can still have your corn, or you can still have other crops, and your family and your community is still fed. So because we also, most of that food is moved through farm to school, and most of that food is also moved through a CSA. But one part of our farm, I will say 30% of our farm is dedicated to a wholesale crop. And we've been partnering with New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association and with Mike to identify some of the crops that might be more economically viable for us to sell to stores like Whole Foods, like Forest, what was Forest before, what was now that store, I forget, Lowe's,
Yes.
Lowe's, and other stores. And in the past, we worked to package and create labels for our garlic. And we were able to grow in a small 3-acre farm about 1,500 pounds of garlic, which like about $7 a pound. We got like about $10,500, and now we're engaging into a similar process with our asparagus. So we're expecting to have more or less about 2,000 pounds of asparagus for this coming season. And depending on the price we get, let's just say $8 a pound, we're looking at getting about $12,000, $12,500, which is very important for us to sustain our operations. I want to show pictures, and maybe in the process of the panel, I will be able to do that.
Yeah, that's great, Alma. So yeah, and we'll touch more about that at the end before we go into the Q&A. I'll address a couple other things, but I think at this moment, if you've got what you think you need, Alma, you have a couple of minutes, otherwise we can hand it off to Alex.
Okay, perfect. So it seems that I may be able to share at least from the screen. Can you see something now?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So I'm just going to move through the presentation. I cannot put it on presenting mode, but you can at least see the pictures. So this is our farm, and like I mentioned, it was designed to build social and economic and leadership opportunities for rural youth. We're located in Anthony. We grow about 20, 25, 30 varieties of vegetables. I mentioned a little bit about some of the ecological ways in which we grow our food, companion squashes. We experiment with cover croppings, and the youth are engaged in all the process of doing some of the thinking about farm planning, mapping the needs of their communities, and they do all of the growing. So these are some pictures of the things we grow. And these are specifically some pictures about the planting of the garlic that we began selling wholesale through the partnership with New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association. You see the youth, the young farmers that are planting here. And right here you see the pictures of our garlic drying and the young farmers just kind of finishing packaging our garlic. And this is how our garlic looked like in the end. I don't recall where this garlic went. It went to Albertsons. Or no.
That went to Whole Foods.
Lowe's.
That went to
I'm
Whole Foods. So these are great, Alma. And just to keep us on track a little bit, we can
Yes?
circle back to
Okay.
it. But I'd like to be able to hand it off to Alex right now because we are a pretty tight window on an hour, and I want to allow time for questions later. So thank you very much. And Alex, take it away.
Okay, hi everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah, cool. Hi. So my name is Alex Pino. I farm over here in Santa Fe County on about an acre in La Cienega, which is just south of Santa Fe. But yeah, anyways, I've got a small farm. I don't own it. I lease the land. It's a very complicated commuter farm situation, which I'm sure a lot of people maybe are familiar with. But anyways, yeah, so I'm farming diversified vegetables mostly for farmers markets. And then about a couple years ago, I started essentially expanding my infrastructure and my wash station and stuff like that, and my capacity to grow more crops, and was able to do some wholesaling also with the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association. And I ended up selling a lot of radishes through a vegetable wholesaler in Albuquerque. And I actually don't know where they actually ended up, but it was, maybe 1,500 pounds extra. But yeah, so I mean, basically, I want to talk about real quick, just like the advantages and expectations and some of my experiences with wholesaling crops, and kind of like what you might be able to expect on some of your farms if anyone is kind of trying to go from direct farmers market sales to more of a wholesale situation, which is kind of two different things in my viewpoint. But essentially, some of the crops that I grow for farmers markets, I won't wholesale just because I can't produce that much, or I don't have the ability to store it. So the radishes worked out really well because it was a fall harvest. I've done that probably 3 falls in a row where I grow a lot of daikon or watermelon radish. I have a couple walk-in coolers that we built. Part of one was funded from a grant through NMFMA, a cool bot, do-it-yourself kind of walk-in cooler. But before having any of that, I don't think I would have been able to do much more than just harvest stuff and take it to a farmer's market. Because you have a finite amount of time there where it's gonna spoil. So the walk-in cooler really helped a lot. I essentially scaled up like some of my like sinks and tables and just like the area where I would wash stuff at the farm, and made that so it was set up so that you could do, say 1,000 pounds in a day versus doing 50 pounds on the back of your truck on the tailgate, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Yeah, so just the idea of like kind of knowing what you need to scale up your production and what crop you might actually want to sell. Because I grow, like I said earlier, I grow a lot of crops that I don't wholesale. I don't intend to wholesale. I'm not going to try to go there with those crops, but just knowing what I'm able to produce a lot of and not lose, the farm, so to speak, on those lower wholesale prices. But yeah, I've got some notes here just about. I mean, essentially, what kind of happened to me is, yeah, if you're a direct retail seller and your outlets are kind of tapped out, you're going home with a lot of stuff, but you're able to produce more. That's when you might want to reach out to somebody like Mike, or even, just go to the local grocery stores. Is something I've done for a long time, and just kind of like snoop around their produce section and see what they're selling and see what's really moving. If you look at like maybe their lettuce, for example, at a grocery store, the quality is really like not always there because it might be 10 days old already at the grocery store, but you can produce something like that. and fill that gap, right? But yeah, just the basic idea of like knowing what you need to process, say 1,000 pounds of carrots versus 100 pounds of carrots in an afternoon, and having that all set up before you start going after these deals and trying to get into this wholesale market, which can be tricky, that's for sure. And maybe the only other thing I wanted to add was that essentially every business, you know, a farm or a ranch or any other business should have some set of values or, you know, morals that kind of guides your work and where you want to go. So even as a for-profit farm, you know, I'm over here working with food banks more than I am with you know, like a grocery store or any other wholesaler or retailer, I guess. But I prefer to work with food banks. So that's been something that kind of at least makes me more passionate about it, or at the end of the day, it feels better. But yeah, I mean, for a small farm, you can really produce a lot, as I'm sure a lot of the farmers on here know. But yeah, on an acre of land, I mean, we're able to produce tens of thousands of pounds of produce. And like I said at the beginning, it's like a lot of farmers markets, you can't move more than 100 pounds of carrots or 200 pounds. So if you're sitting on rows and rows of carrots and they got to go somewhere, it's good to have a plan in place. But yeah, just knowing the scale and knowing the production and knowing kind of like what your bottom line is too, like on a crop, you know, because at the beginning of this conference, I threw a question at Jeff Whitty, our Secretary of Agriculture, about, you know, why more farmers maybe don't wholesale. And the question was just phrased as why would you want to sell carrots at 70 cents a pound when you can get $4 a pound at market, you know? And he kind of answered it, but skirted around the actual issue of like, how can you make a living selling carrots at 70 cents a pound if you got to be out there in the field weeding them by hand or even with a tractor, right? So just that idea of knowing what your bottom line is, I think is really important, and knowing like maybe what your case size would be, because I've had some retailers where they want, you know, a case of radishes, for example, but they maybe only want 18 bunches and they want those like once a week, but for, you know, for what that costs at $2 a bunch or whatever it might be, it's not really worth dropping that off and doing all that. So you got to try to maybe bundle like what you're selling and figure out a way to make it work. I think garlic's a great example of doing really good wholesale because it's a little more shelf stable and you can move it week after week and have a consistent product versus like, you know, a crop like watermelon radishes, you're going to have one harvest maybe in the fall and then you're just moving off that same pile. So they don't necessarily get better in storage. But yeah, just considering all those things, I think is really important when you look at wholesaling, because I've seen it make and break a lot of farms, you know, where people think wholesaling is the answer and then they maybe invest too much in it and don't build up their direct sales at market and build their brand. But I think it's a good complement to market farming, at least in my experience. I think it complements really well. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have there.
Great, thank you, Alex. And before I hand it off to Eddie real quickly, I'd like to a little bit about what Alex spoke of. Yeah, so retail is not going to be the same price that you would get at a farmer's market. But what we do and what I try to do with you is help you research what you can get the best return on investment for. We identify 1 to 2 crops where you can grow some volume at it and make good money. I'm never going to let you enter the market at, you know, at 70 cents a pound carrots. That's just, they can go get them from California as far as I'm concerned. So with that being said, we were very successful and have been the last 3 years at getting farmers fair market value. And I think Alex could even speak to his radishes. We did pretty good by him as well. It's like Alma, she got $9 a pound on her garlic last year, I believe was what it was. We had an organic farmer who got $10 a pound on garlic. And we've just really helped the farmer establish the value for New Mexico grown. So there is that difference of having the capability of walking into a retail setting and negotiations with them and then letting them know that you know what you're worth. Sorry, my dog. Eddie, go ahead and take it away and I'll put him up.
Well, thank you, Mike. And thank you, Alex and Alma. That was very, very interesting what you guys are all doing. It's a great thing. We're going to show you a little video of what we're doing right now. And I just want to take a moment to let you know I'm from northern New Mexico, and I'm a 15th generation farmer. My father is from the original 60 families that came here in 1598, and my mother is an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation and the Choctaw Nation. Currently, we're raising on 150 acres here in Velarde, and we do some row crops, and we grow approximately 1.6 million pounds of fresh fruit and vegetables. One thing I want to stress is that no matter the size of your farm, you can make wholesaling to a grocery store work. One thing that I've noticed, a lot of people go to farmers market and then on Monday calling Mike and trying to get rid of what they didn't sell. Well, the grocer's not going to take it, or they'll maybe take it once and they're not going to take it again. So what I want to stress though is that you can build up a wholesale market. Ours is about 40% of our sales is in the wholesale market. We ship to about 6 different states, and locally is our biggest market. Whole Foods, Albertsons, Lowe's, and small stores that buy from us. But we want to give this opportunity to tell you what you're really going to need to make it work. And one of the things is, the first thing you need to do is really consider what you're going to do and what you want to grow. You need to get a FSMA certificate. Doesn't cost you anything. The local county agents will give you, it's the Food Modernization Safety Act, and that's federal law. And a lot of stores are going to look for that to know that you're growing with safety in mind. Then you need to register your farm with your farm service agency. There's one in every county. It was downsized during the Obama years, and our state has one location, and that's Moriarty. It's not hard to enlist and put your farm number and get your farm name on there. That entitles you to get equip grants, different kind of grants to get coolers. They send you out an email and tells you what is available. Then you need to register your building with FDA. That's a requirement, a federal requirement. And it's if it's your cooler, or if it's some type of lean-to shed that you want to get your produce washed and clean, you have to register that with FDA. That is a requirement, it is a must, and it doesn't cost anything. Take you about 15 minutes of paperwork. One other thing a lot of the stores really want is a $2 million insurance policy. And then they want to be as a certificate of holder also. Certificate holder isn't going to cost you that much. And as you get longer into business and never have a recall, your insurance goes down. Right now, on 1.6 million pounds, we pay about $650 a year. So you need to include that in your pricing and figure out where and how you're going to recoup some of that insurance back. Organic is not a requirement, but I think if you want to get in the stores, you want to get a little bit more money for your produce, organic is the way to go. I know a lot of us are farming traditionally. We don't use pesticides, heavy pesticides, and we don't use fertilizers, but we do a lot of organic pesticides. It's still a pesticide. And by getting organic, you will get a little bit more money for your product, and you will have a better door walking into the store, because that's what they're looking for. The last one that they're really going to want you to have is a certificate, a third-party audit of your food safety plan and your farm safety plan. And that can be by GAP and GIP or Global Harmonized Certificate. And the good news is Michael Venticinque now is a certifier, and he can help you and walk you through it. Generally speaking, before this, you were always having to do it on your own and invent the wheel. Now you have somebody like Michael that can help you, walk you through the process, make sure you're getting it right, and get that certificate. That certificate will open a lot of doors, and it'll lower your insurance, and it'll make the store buyers more aggressive towards your local product. Once you get these, I would say you need to determine how big you want to be. Most grocery stores don't want to talk to you. Like Alex said, they want to do small volumes, one store, maybe 18 bunches of radishes. Well, naturally, you and I both know, everybody knows that it's not going to work. You need to have a little more volume to make that distribution work. So you need to set a certain part of your farm into the wholesale aspect so you can generate that money that you need. One thing that you have to understand is they take 30 days to pay, and they're using your money to make their money. So you have to go for the long haul with them. They prefer if you have a 8-10 week window. One thing a lot of people don't realize, and I think Alma and Alex are doing a great job, and they're a great resource to call, is Alex talked about carrots. Anybody can grow orange carrots, 70 cents a pound. That's what you're probably going to get. Farmers market, you get a little bit more, but everybody's selling carrots. What a lot of people haven't done is looked into packaging, maybe grow white, purple, orange, red carrots, put it in a 6-ounce package, clip the tops, leave a little green on so everybody knows they're fresh, wash them well, put them in a container, take them to the store. The store does not have enough employees to put your product out in a good spot. So you want to make it stand out. You want people drawn to that product. You want people to purchase your product. And the first year you might not sell well, but you want to do this as a long term. In 2 years, in 3 years, you're going to be selling a lot more. They're going to be calling you and wanting that. There's other things to do like radishes. You could put different watermelon, white radishes, rainbow radishes in a container and mix them up and sell them. Same thing with, say, cherry tomatoes. We don't grow them because they're held to pick, but a lot of people grow them. Don't just put red tomatoes in a container. Mix them up colors, people will buy them, kids will eat them better. There's different kinds, there's pear tomatoes, there's all different kinds that you can do. But one thing I want to stress is that you all have the capability of selling to Whole Foods, Albertsons. About 20 years ago, a gentleman by the name of Craig Maple, he was the marketing director under Dr. Miley Gonzalez and Pam Roy. They worked very hard. They were sort of ignored in the legislature. A lot of stores said, well, you don't have the capability. These two individuals, including New Mexico Department of Agriculture, worked very hard to get to where we are today. But I can tell you, you have the most qualified and the best assets in this state with being with Michael Venticinque and Denise Miller. These people are honest with you. They will be honest and say, this will work, this won't work. And I think in time, you'll get to know them better. They'll get to know you better, and be honest with yourself and say, you know what, I can only grow for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Michael will bring the buyers in. In Whole Foods, they call them foragers. They come and look for unique, different products. And New Mexico has a lot of unique and different products. And all of us have farm in our blood or we wouldn't do it. We're all not going to get rich. We're definitely not going to be multimillionaires, but we are going to be able to sustain ourselves and make a good living. And the last thing I want to tell, I want to appreciate all you farmers that are good stewards to the earth. Mother Earth needs us to take care of her, because right now we've been going through a pandemic, and this pandemic has actually been very good for the grocery stores because they're not able to get product in the stores. Now is the time to get together with Mike and really put your plan in place and move forward. And I just want to offer my services. If somebody wants to sit down and talk with Mike and I'm willing to sit down and help you and guide you through and show you what you have to do. But it is possible. Every single farm, no matter if it's an acre or a half acre, can make a wholesale program and make some extra cash. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Eddie. And we're going to open it up just to some Q&A here in a minute, but I'd just like to touch on a couple of the other things that maybe even Eddie mentioned. And as you've seen today, I've been asked a few farmers of all different sizes and around the state and different varieties of crops to attend today. And so Eddie is he's the larger scale of the small scale farmer. And so he has a little bit of a different food safety model as far as GAP and those things that you heard him mention, because he has the ability to also deliver directly to the retailer. My background has been grocery retail before I came on with NMFMA. And unfortunately, the days are gone pretty much of the farmer being able to drive up to the back door now. But what we've been able to establish through NMFMA is the tiered food safety trainings, which is getting you on now a shared supplier list, which is being recognized by some retailers, state agencies. But the exciting new project that we're also working on is getting, and I believe I've seen one of the guys here, I think Kyle is here from New Mexico Harvest, but we're getting some food hubs around the state GAP certified. So then the farmers themselves can sell into these food hubs, and then the food hubs can take care of the business for you. And with the tiered food safety in place, they can aggregate you with other small farmers. So if you can only grow 100 pounds of something, you still have the same accessibility to that market that the guy that can grow 1,000 pounds. So it doesn't need to be, I got to reach a certain level. Our goal is to get you to there. FSMA is just a rule of, it's a level of sales. It is compliant, but through our tiered trainings, at the end of it, we assist you in writing a farm risk assessment plan. And that gets you with that plan, you are within the guidelines of FSMA. It's nothing, it's not regulatory. The NMFMA is not regulatory. But what I can do for you, as Eddie mentioned, is offer some technical assistance for free and get you headed that direction. Any size farm can become GAP certified if that's what they choose to do. But don't think it's going to keep you away from selling to these markets, because with my background, I have pretty much connections all over New Mexico, and we can move product however you need it to be done. So with that being said, if we can open up to some Q&A and any comments.
Yeah, Mike, if you want us to switch everybody over to panelists, that way everybody can have control of their own video and microphone, and they can ask questions as needed or use the chat. Just stay tuned. Michael and I will start to transition people over, and I am going to just share a short ad while we are switching people over.
Okay, great.
Hello, this is Ashley Taylor with the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association. I'm the local food and farming program coordinator, and I assist with the development and management of the New Mexico Grown Approved Supplier program. This program was developed in collaboration with the New Mexico Public Education Department, the New Mexico Department of Agriculture, New Mexico State University Cooperative Extension Service, the Aging and Long-Term Services Department, and the Early Childhood Education and Care Department. The New Mexico Grown Approved Supplier program is designed to grow and diversify the base of New Mexico producers selling to schools, senior centers, and early childhood sites. The program helps to assure that fresh produce moving through institutions with vulnerable populations is safe, traceable, and originates from a garden or farm using sound and current food safety practices. The program also helps connect statewide farmers and buyers, as well as streamline internal purchasing processes statewide. The Approved Supplier program provides an alternate pathway for producers traditionally marginalized by the process and reduces costs associated with third-party food safety certification. Farmers of all scales are encouraged to sell their locally grown produce to schools, senior centers, and early childhood sites across the state. No growing operation is too small for the New Mexico Grown program. Special state funding makes it possible for institutions to purchase local product at fair market prices. You may apply as an individual or as a food hub aggregator. If you are an individual farmer with smaller harvests, you can still apply yourself, or you may be able to participate in this program through a food hub or aggregator. Annual timelines for applications will be a priority deadline of March 1st, a secondary deadline of June 1st, and rolling approval on a case-by-case basis. But there is up to a 90-day review process before you may be able to sell to institutions, so keep that in mind when you apply. Coming up next month is a New Mexico Grown Institute from April 20th through the 22nd, which will be a virtual gathering of farm to cafeteria practitioners and will include topics such as sourcing and preparing local foods, garden nutrition and agricultural education, farmer and value chain support, and policy and advocacy. You can register by contacting me or Kendall Chavez, whose contact I will provide in just a moment. In addition, more information can be found on newmexicofma.org, such as applications, deadlines, requirements, and more. Or reach out to me directly, and I can help with any questions you may have and point you in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay, and we have everybody switched over. So everybody should have access to their microphone and their video. So feel free to turn on your video so we can see everybody's smiling faces. And go ahead and unmute if you have a question or anything, but feel free to also use that chat and Q&A. And let's take turns and get chatting.
Hi, everyone. So if you could, just so we don't try to get everybody talking at once, if you don't want to put it in the chat, there is a kind of raise hand function at the bottom, and that way we can make sure we're getting everybody and no one's stepping on anybody. So let's see. So I see a question here from Siobhan asking about, can we help farmers understand the pricing structure for different products? So yeah, absolutely. We can do that with some one-on-one consultation as far as production planning goes, depending on what you want to grow. Like I had mentioned, we want to look at what you can get your best return on investment for, and that's meaning factoring in all your costs. And the one that usually gets a lot of farmers is, we'll get through everything and then I'll ask them, do you pay yourself? And many times they look at me and go, no. You need to pay yourself. We want you to get paid and make money. So these will all be factored in. So the short answer to that I've taken a long time to get to is, yes, we can do that. It just depends on the product you're growing and the time of year and the accessibility of it. And depending on also the season, if it's, for example, when everybody in the state has squash, it may be a little bit of a different pricing structure depending on your region. So hope that answered that question for you.
And it looks like Andrew Neighbor also has his hand up. So Andrew, if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm building an aquaponics farm, a soilless growing situation, and we're going to be producing mostly leafy greens, lettuces, spinach, and so on for public schools through New Mexico Grown. But I'm always curious about selling raw agricultural product versus processed food. And obviously, if we have to process our lettuce, washing it 3 times and drying it before it goes out, and then the end user is going to do the same as well, I'd like to just better understand where we can skip that step, because it will have an effect on the nutritional value and on the longevity of the product. So what defines how much processing does the producer have to do when selling into these different markets?
Well, great question, Andrew. So a lot of that is really based upon your customers' requirements. Some customers don't like you to wash at all because they want to take care of it. They can control what and how it is being washed and how it's stored from there. Others may tell you that they don't have the time nor the staff, and that they may ask you to wash it. So to that, I would just say it's all based upon your end customer requirements. And Kyle, I see Kyle, and then I think I see Jennifer Knapp on here as well. A couple of the hubs, La Bonita and the New Mexico Harvest, they can also speak to, as a farmer, you would be the end customer to them, and they can speak to some of that requirement. Kyle, I'm going to pick on you because I see your face. So could you kind of help me out with this one? Would you have a requirement as to what you ask your farmers to do on that?
Yeah, well, so the farmers that we'd be working with that are doing wholesale, obviously they need to be tier 1, tier 2 certified. And we'd like it if they packaged their food in food safe packaging, and from there we'll take it and keep it cool. We'll deliver it and sell it for you guys.
So then that being said, you like it to end up coming to you finished, ready to then move on to the customer. So you're, as the end customer for the farmer, you're asking them to do the washing for you.
Yeah, for us, definitely. We don't have the facility to clean everything.
And then Andrew, it's just and it just varies by customer basis. So I would say that most are going to want you to wash.
The unique thing about soilless farming and aquaponics and even hydroponics, of course, is the ability to sell living lettuce. And so that kind of changes the dynamic a little bit with respect to washing. We don't have the soil contamination issues. And in fact, as a consumer, I just eat the lettuce right out of the grow beds without even washing it for myself, because it's just not come into contact with anything that's toxic. But when you come to sell it, you want to assure that it is food safe, or at least that it's shown to comply with regulation. And so it's just a mystery to me at times as to, where the washing fits in, because it does have a degrading effect on the product.
Right.
And so if it can be delivered to the consumer with them informed that they can or should wash it before eating it, then it's most likely to be the most nutritious and most long-living product as possible.
Yeah, and we can take some of that offline, Andrew. I know you and I have discussed about me coming to visit you.
Yeah,
I can fill you in a little bit more of that. And I think we've kind of gotten to there. And I see Jennifer mentions that you guys prefer them to be washed by the grower. Okay, so I don't want to go take up too much time of this. If there's anybody else that wants to talk more about this, we definitely can. And Andrew, you and I are going to schedule the visit.
yeah.
Perfect. So Ash, was there?
Sarah, I'm sorry if I say your name wrong. She had something in the chat. Are there ways farmers can commit to support and not undercut each other or drive prices down? Feels like local food sales are becoming more cutthroat, but the demand for local food is high. So I think there is a way for all farmers to succeed.
Absolutely. And we've got a couple here that can speak to that actually as well. So the first thing is I would always encourage you to talk to your neighbors. I mean, find out what they're doing, what they're growing, what kind of pricing structure they're getting, and then either grow something that is similar to theirs if you can get the same thing and you guys can work that out, or if you're possible to grow something else that another market might like. But once again, moving into these food hubs, this is where they can aggregate at a fair price to all farmers. And then there's not that cutthroat business. And to that, I would say, and I believe it was Alex that mentioned, you're going to see a little bit of a lower price. So you're going to get a fair New Mexico grown price is what you're going to get. That's where your value is at. And you're going to get that for being that from either a retailer directly or a food hub. And then they're going to in turn get that for you as well. But we really, really discourage the cutthroat business of it. I think there's enough pie for all of us to get it and make a fair living wage doing this. So if I would say, if you have any questions as to what you think you need to be pricing, you need to be looking at in the market, just always feel free to contact me.
And then Alex responded to that in the chat as well. And he said, I think it's easier to convince fellow growers to come up in price, but much harder to convince someone to come down in price. Hard to control without some sort of market price fixing.
Well, to that, I would say, Alex, and to Sarah, I would just say that sales fixes everything. Volume fixes everything. I mean, if you've got, if you can, look at, I'm just going to use this fictional number of $5 a pound, and then you're selling maybe 50 pounds a week at the farmer's market, but then you're taking home 100 pounds. What if you did $3.50 a pound and sold all 150 pounds at one time. And then you have that extra product to take to your community-based market. My goal is to never get anybody out of their markets. We did a workshop a couple years ago, Denise and I did, called, got in trouble for it, but it was called Biscuits and Gravy. And I liken retail sales to the biscuit of your farm. Let that be what makes your truck payment, your farm payment, keeps the lights on, buys you a new tool. And then the farmers markets can be the gravy of your farm. If you want to go on a vacation, or if you want to buy a gift for somebody or something along those lines, or start, doing some savings. We never want the two to compete. What we're here to do is let the two enhance each other and make you more of a successful farmer.
I think if I can, I think that is true for our farm. I don't think we will be doing wholesale if that wholesale didn't really complement in a meaningful way our social work, or the social dimensions of our work, and also the economic need of our farm. We sell wholesale because it makes sense economically speaking. And also because, quite frankly, if you try to sell sometimes like asparagus, let's say, through our CSA box, our community doesn't want to see asparagus each time on that veggie box. It's not necessarily a crop that's culturally relevant for our community, and especially we cannot just try to move it from there. And it doesn't make sense for us to try to move it any other way. So we feed our community with that asparagus, but we also sell it, where it's, where we still can get a good price, and that money still translates into producing other crops for our community. And I think the reality of Southern New Mexico is that the food needs are so big, meaning the markets are so large that we don't have enough quantities to really be competitive with each other. So even when farmers don't necessarily get along personally because they don't like each other or whatever reason, we still find a way to work together with each other, and we always supporting each other and aggregating with each other when there's a need to aggregate. So I think it's also about the kind of culture that you build for your own farm, for your own farming operations, and your own, the leadership that you want to project, like out in the community.
That's great. Thank you, Alma. Well said. And what I've been able to do, and NMFA has been able to do with Alma and Anthony Youth Farms and several others around the state, is we go in and we identify a crop that is, first off, culturally relevant in your region. But Alma also mentioned that the asparagus maybe wasn't as much. But what we did is, with her garlic, we created her a retail customer base last year. And so we created a demand within Whole Foods for her local asparagus. So it's moving forward with that kind of progress in mind, and whetting the appetite, so to speak. And what we're doing is, by regionalizing this into markets in your area, this is where people know who you are. They know your farm, they know your reputation, they want to support you. And by accessing them into the grocery stores, it's doing a couple of different things. It's giving them access to your product 7 days a week. And then for many of our customers throughout the state who are on SNAP benefits, this puts so much more produce into the grocery stores for double up food bucks, which is now feeding our New Mexican citizens a healthy, fresh, New Mexico grown product at a 50% discount, when they can in turn buy more, which means the farmers will sell more. And so it's just really that sort of, it's a you wash my back, I wash yours sort of thing. It's identifying what you can grow on your farm, what you do well. Can you take a couple rows off of a small farm and just maybe grow just tomatoes? Or if you've got a couple of acres, can you take a half an acre and grow me some tomatoes, cucumbers, and lettuce, or whatever that crop is that you feel confident in your area. And then there are other crops that maybe you might want to try differently. So there's ways of working with it. We can do some production planning with you. We can start sourcing markets for you even before you grow and talking and finding out what the interest is. We did some of that with Alma. We did some of that with, well, Alex was a little bit of an exception with his watermelon radishes. He just said, I got these great radishes, and okay. So that was a little bit of a short notice, but we can work with that too. So there's just many different ways of doing the production planning and taking you into the business of retail to enhance the business of your farm. And first and foremost, everything starts with food safety, guys. I cannot stress it enough. It's the tiered trainings through the NMFMA, which all of you here are members. So you can receive these trainings for free. Right now we're doing them online. Ashley Taylor, I believe, put up her information and she's helping to coordinate these. But this is where everything starts. And it's getting you onto that shared supplier list for the state too, which is the schools, the senior centers. It's the early childhood development and those type things. So food safety is your key. And then Kyle mentioned it as well, as far as with the hubs. We want to start with tiered food safety trainings, moving into these GAP certified hubs. So,
and I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. I do have a session tomorrow at 4 o'clock for food safety on the farm and with food hubs. And Anita Dalja and I will be talking a little bit more about that if you would like to join. But it looks like we have about 5 minutes left. There is one question in the chat. Morgan is asking, does NMFMA offer any resources or liaison for guidance on business structures that offer raw agricultural product and food?
well, I mean, can you expand upon that a little bit for me, Morgan, as far as what type of guidance you would be looking for? Because I could probably go on a 15-minute ramble when we got 5 minutes left.
Sure, I realize this might be better suited outside of this, but basically, if you sell honey, it's a raw agricultural product until you add cinnamon or
Right.
another flavor. And so let me just talk to you outside of this. That would probably be easier.
That would be great. And I think I put my phone number in there, but there'll be a sign up here at the end, and then I can always be reached through the NMFMA website.
Thank you.
Anybody else got anything real quickly?
I just think,
Hi, Eileen.
hi, good evening, everyone. I just feel like, especially coming from a tribal perspective, there's so much of a food desert in our state for us to be in some kind of competitive mode with each other. I think there's so many opportunities around even just our tribal nations that haven't been impacted or included in a lot of the processes. We have a lot of our Asakia treaty-based communities left out of this segment as well. I mean, there's just so many people that we have to feed that if we could really promote one another's crop and produce as not only how healthy it is, how vibrant, how community connected we are, that we can actually increase our sales and market instead of trying to be so cheap. Like the world's been cheap for too long and it's not working. So I think, as we promote ourselves for how viable, but also just everyone's produce is so just our nutritional impact we're creating amongst this whole network right here. If we can continue to sell that story and sell what we do, not only are we increasing our, investments and all that from not ourselves, but into communities we're servicing. And I just can't tell each of you enough that our tribes are still continuing to be left out of the food market. Our rural communities are left out of this market. We're having sessions on how to create grocery stores in these markets, and so as we don't even have markets created, there's no, I think, reason for us to feel in such a competitive mode to one another, but maybe more of these gatherings that talk to, but like we can showcase each other's product. And even, I'm in a position where I need you to come sell your food to my communities. I want your foods to be in my schools, even if I can't, because that's just when we look at the reality of New Mexicans. And if we're really talking about New Mexico and growing New Mexico, we have a lot of work to do. You know, there should be no need to really cutthroat anyone at this point. So I just hope that a lot of our conversations can move towards our bountiful and the amount of increase that we need to see in our prices and supporting one another. Like if someone says, yeah, you see that Caesars was selling this for that, you know, tell them that our hard, you know, area and geography, love coming into it makes it, you know, that much worth it, because I'll do the same for you guys. And I think New Mexico growers and we're coming together like this, if we share that kind of collective story, our consumers are going to believe what we're selling and that it's, you know, the source of what we're creating in our market. And I think that's something that's really missed, and something that people are buying and spending money on is how much people care about them. And so if we can market our foods on that, I think together we can really create a new economy here that's untold and a lot of times forgotten, but we really need to be showcased.
Completely agree with you, Eileen, and thank you for that. And just as a point of reference, myself and I've worked with several other agencies around the state with a lot of the indigenous and native farmers, getting them into the food safety. I work very closely with a few of them. They're up there in the San Felipe Pueblo. As you know, I work with Bryce quite often. So I work with farmers in the Four Corners region of the native farmers there. So we are looking to enhance the indigenous and native farmers around the state, but we have to do this with help from leadership such as yourself and Bryce and et cetera around the state, getting them to understand the value of food safety, because just taking those classes opens up all the doors. And it really does. And so this is where we're having a little bit of a barrier there, but we're moving it forward, and these are great conversations to have. So with that being said, I see we're at 5:01. Eileen, let's you and I talk, because I really need to talk to you maybe tomorrow morning, if
Sure.
possible.
I
I
just
have
think
some.
a big contributing factor to a lot of farmers that are established. I'm looking at some of you gentlemen, Kyle, Alex, I've seen you in these meetings for a long time now, but you know, you're established to a point where a lot of our indigenous farmers or tribes want to get to, but in the meantime, that shouldn't be the void. You know, if you can come in, what I like to do is state to tribes what level and tiers that we're at, so that they can really see the value in local produce and see that if we can't provide it, but I'm promoting your farms, that's the open avenue that they can access fresh foods now in the immediate. So
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely the case. We need to do more of that, and that work is a continuing effort. And as we know, it's not going to happen overnight, but we're not going to stop till it gets there. So thank you, everyone. I see we've gone a couple minutes over, and they try to be really tight on the schedules. So Ashley, I apologize to you. And I thank everyone for coming. I believe my information will be posted soon. And just have a great day. And yes, George, my dogs are barking. We had to throw them outside.
Thank you very much.
Everybody knows we have a happy hour starting now, and I will put the link in the chat so you're able to click that link, exit out of here, and then switch over to that one. It is Cocktail and Cuddles, so grab a beverage of your choice and a cuddly creature, and we can chat and hang out and check it out. And I do have a question from Morgan. So if everybody wants to switch over to happy hour, or have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. We have sessions starting in the morning, and tomorrow is our last day of the conference. So hope to see you guys there. And it was great seeing everybody today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Stay safe.
You guys are assholes.
And then Morgan, I did see your message. Did you get my email that I put in the chat?
Yes.
Okay.
Ashley at Farmers Markets, New Mexico.
Yeah, and it just has the farmers with an S, markets with an S, nm.org. And just shoot me an email, and I can get that to you after we're done at 6, if that's
Cool.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, bye-bye.
Bye. And if you are joining for happy hour, that link is in, it's a different meeting. So I'll be shutting this one down.